Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma. Apparently, I am flying solo today with a scheduling conflict with my good colleague, buddy, and pal, one Mr. Brian E. Roach. And Brian was not too thrilled about the result of Sunday night's Steelers loss 25-10 to the Los Angeles Chargers. But then again, looks like a lot of yins aren't very thrilled with it. I don't like losing either, but goodness, folks, some people absolutely lose their freaking minds. And let me tell you, some of the opinions, some of the things that I see these things when the Steelers win also. And unfortunately, I wish Brian were here. Brian may be even more negative on this football team than what I am. But you know what? That's part of what makes this job difficult. I'm not trying to just be here and be some blowhard that just dwells on the negative. You see those guys on the radio. I can't even listen to local Pittsburgh sports radio anymore and some of the local media because of just some of the garbage that's out there. And there's others that pop up, and even in competition here with our own show, that it's just so easy for them to run down this team. I often wonder, why do you even bother doing this? Now, it's difficult. I had some jagoff in the comments on the last show, and he probably thinks this gets under my skin if they're still listening to it. Great. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting, liking, and all that other noise that helps with the engagement for this show, because quite frankly, I do wish sometimes we were seen or heard by more, because there are more that need to see and hear what I have to say following this 25-10 loss. Now, I'm going to have a little more bass in my voice today because there's certain things that are just annoying me, and there's certain things that are just pissing me off. And it's just people that don't know ball. Right. And when you're trying to find some silver lining and you're trying to figure out the Steelers just, they beat on the Colts. They had all these turnovers, et cetera, et cetera. What can they do against the Chargers? And apparently I'm just boring because I tell people where to tune in because they're clueless. They're on Facebook at 9:00 at night. Still can't find the game on NBC. That's sometimes the people who need to hear this message. And I'm not trying to make fun of anyone, don't get me wrong, but it's irritating. And sometimes this is a thankless job to which I have some folks, even some friends in my friends list on Facebook. They come in, they drop in my DMs, they send me texts. I'm watching the Steelers not be able to generate anything on offense, and it pisses me off. And then I get these people that just come out from under a rock. They're kind of worse than having Cleveland Browns fans in my family who dwell on when the Steelers aren't doing well. And this is a Steelers team on paper that we believe should be doing a lot better than what their 5-4 record indicates, as they're starting to slip. And we see the Baltimore Ravens rip off, stay relevant even without Lamar Jackson, and win 3 games. And the Bengals trying to stay in that conversation, and Joe Burrow. And this is the next opponent upcoming and coming off a bye week. And Burrow is entering that 21-day window. Whether it'll be available on Sunday or not, I will not know that. But we'll do that. We'll look at that in the pregame. Brian, my good friend, like I said, good friend. I mean, me and Brian went to Ireland together, shared a room, and everything like that. So I don't have anything negative to say or bad to say about Brian. But sometimes, we're going to butt heads. And I wish he was here, because the thing we're going to butt heads on is whether or not the Steelers will win more than 6 games this year. They've already got 5. He thinks there might only be 1 other victory left on the calendar. I think the next 2 are winnable. But what has to change versus what transpired in LA? I think some folks are looking at the wrong things. You've got some of your blowhards out here bitching and complaining about Mike Tomlin. Oh, yes. I told you, I've got a little sass today because the fans themselves, it's like they have to win every single game. I call this like the fantasy football and the John Madden football video game culture that, I'm a part of. I grew up in it. I had a Nintendo and a Super Nintendo, and later, my friends had a Sega Genesis. So I experienced all of this from the ground floor up. And everybody wants video game numbers. Nobody wants to be associated with losers. I'm sure that's why the Steelers have a lot of the fair weather fan base that they do have. You win and have a dynasty of 4 Super Bowls in the 1970s. You haven't had a losing season since 2003. During this offseason, Brian made a comment, a good, solid comment, that the Steelers at some point need to stink. They need to suck. They need to be complete garbage in order for them to just have better draft position, because for a few years there, you ended up with better draft position. And I know they moved and made a trade to get Troy Polamalu, but he was one of those pieces along with Big Ben Roethlisberger. Yet again, more positioning on the draft board in Heath Miller. But I have people that are everywhere to fire Mike Tomlin. Does this team even have 5 wins if Mike Tomlin isn't the coach? Is a coach that's not named Mike Tomlin able to shift Jalen Ramsey to the safety position, pull in Kyle Duggar off the, I don't want to say off the street, he was with the team, but he wasn't with the Steelers, and have these guys look competent on defense against the Colts, and yes, competent against the Chargers too, because I know people look at this score, I see 25 points from the Chargers, and I see a Steelers offense that was averaging 25 points per game, and I think to myself, this defense did enough. Only 15 points, actually 12 at halftime, 15 through the third quarter scored by Los Angeles, should be enough to get the job done with Aaron Rodgers and company. And maybe the and company wasn't enough, but the main name in that statement, Aaron Rodgers, certainly a problem that I'm going to circle back to, because the defense, I thought, actually did, I don't want to say tremendous, but I don't know what the F you're supposed to do when the other team has the ball for over 15 minutes longer than you. And it's not because the offense is playing complementary football. The defense themselves, I have like the funny graphic. I'm not here for jokes today. I'm not here to entertain. So if I have a boring show, whatever, comment again about it. I don't care. I'm not here to just listen to myself. I'm not here to just draw attention to myself like some others that are on Twitter. They go around with their phone and they take a selfie video while they're walking around, and they talk about all these different things. I don't know that they know ball either, because they're pointing all the fingers in the wrong places. This defense got to Justin Herbert. I don't know. They hit him 9 times. They had 11, I believe, maybe a full dozen tackles for loss in this game. Does that sound like the defense that had just been Swiss cheese and been giving up just oodles of yards and first downs? And mind you, the Chargers are going to get theirs. They're 7-3. They're 3-0 in their division. We knew they were a competent opponent. We know about both Harbaugh brothers as coaches. And some people will say, well, you're just getting complacent with losing. I get complacent with some losses and some of the expectations. What I didn't expect was for the Steelers, minus a garbage time touchdown to Roman Wilson, which he put the Jets on finally and he looked better the part, but none of the players in that Chargers secondary at that point were like, they don't want any of the smoke. They don't want to get hurt. They don't want to make an errant tackle and rip up their knee or ligament or ankle or land awkwardly and separate a shoulder, any of that stuff. End up in concussion protocol. Any of these things, they let them just squeak in. So I'm going to disregard that. I'm just going to say 3 points, because when did that actually happen? Roman Wilson with 3 minutes remaining in the game. They finally get 10. Steelers have 10 points after a PAT. So you're only 3 points up until the final 3 minutes of the game off of a 59-yard effing field goal. That's all you could muster. And a big problem of that was, well, I guess I've got to play better. Well, yes. And people all of a sudden are talking about Aaron Rodgers as looking like a 41-year-old. And no point up till now were any of you saying that. In fact, all freaking preseason, all offseason, all free agency, ever since the Steelers lost in the playoffs, and then Aaron Rodgers started to become linked to being a Steeler, all I heard is that give this guy a try. He can't be any worse than anybody else. It looked a lot like Mitch Trubisky and a lot like Kenny Pickett and those guys over the last few years, and even a gimpy-armed older Ben Roethlisberger. But to any time right now, Rodgers is like a top 10 quarterback in most of the metrics in the National Football League up to this point. I know Herbert and I think, maybe one other. Maybe it was Dak. I'm trying to think. Somebody else, maybe. I think there were only 2 quarterbacks heading into this weekend that had more touchdown passes than Aaron Rodgers at this point. Nobody was saying he's a 41-year-old, 42-year-old, 45-year-old, 50-year-old quarterback. Everybody thought that he found the fountain of youth until yesterday. Players are allowed to have bad games, okay? It just sucks when you have a collective that has a terrible game against the Green Bay Packers, for example, the defense, and now they're branded this. Now Aaron Rodgers is going to be branded this because it's a primetime game. Once again, when they had the Packers, primetime, Sunday Night Football. Okay? Now you go to Sunday Night Football in LA, more eyeballs are on it, more fair weather fans, more people who don't know ball. If you're listening or watching here, I think you know ball. I think you like to hear some of the things that I say, whether you agree with me 100% or not. That doesn't even matter. We can agree to disagree on certain things. Me and Brian were arguing, we're pissed off about this game yesterday. And I just literally flat out told him, I'm like, bro, I don't want to get in an argument with you and be fighting with you. I'm mad about this game. I'm mad about this result. I'm mad about the effort in a lot of the phases of this football game. I'm not actually mad at you. But you've got people that talk about, man, there's people who call into these post-game shows. Omar Khan can't build a roster, can't do this and that. What the hell are you talking about? You were excited that this guy got rid of Chase Claypool for what ended up being the 32nd overall pick in the NFL draft, and then went and got Joey Porter Jr. That is what everybody, they loved fleecing the Bears for that draft pick. They loved staying pat and getting Joey Porter Jr. until you don't. And some of the things you're just talking out of your ass, and it is a response to so many of these fans that are out there. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it anymore. I kind of get tired of it. It's just, you wanted Aaron Rodgers. Every now and then, maybe this is what you get. Maybe it does have to do with age. But man, I feel like the ball is getting there with velocity, with speed. Maybe he can't escape the pocket like he used to, but man, he was hearing footsteps all night last night. He was moving into, he didn't see where Troy Fautanu, he washed Mack away just enough, and Rodgers moved right into him for a safety. 3-2 baseball score. There were people equating this to the Pirates. Don't ever freaking do that with my Steelers, by the way. Two completely different organizations, but just goes to show you the entitlement mentality of some fans that truly haven't suffered the same way the Pittsburgh Pirates fans have since the 90s, since getting rid of like GOAT players, those killer bees, a whole different set. You knew that this game was going a little south, speaking of another killer bee, when Chris Boswell misses a field goal that's shorter than the one he made, 15 yards shorter than the one, roughly, whatever. Told you I'm not doing math today. He misses it. Usually when there's a Boswell miss, you're like, we're in for a long day in the office. And it sucks because you've seen the Steelers offense be competent enough. And you've got everyone from Collinsworth to anybody who's on Twitter. They're talking about this team didn't go get a wide receiver too. They tried. Omar Khan tried. Omar Khan's the reason you got Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey. He is the reason that the Steelers are, that they're at least competitive. This team could have just laid down until they found their next quarterback. I mean, I'm sure people are pissed in Buffalo too. They lost to the Dolphins. What's going on there now all of a sudden? People were pissed in Baltimore when they had one win, 1-5. Maybe they right the ship. Maybe the Steelers don't right the ship. But I've seen enough here. This defense, the reason this isn't like this, 2 of 8 on first down by the Chargers in the first half. That's not the Steelers were like 0 for 9 or something. Even worse on offense. But it should have been good enough. If they could have went 4 or 5 for 9, maybe punched in a touchdown, they could have put this team away early. Instead, Aaron Rodgers overthrows a wide open DK Metcalf. He also has a pass later in the game. Should be on 4th down, and he just forces it. It's going to go to DK, but put it somewhere where this dude, he's like 7 feet tall. He's like 200. As he kept saying, Collinsworth was saying Darnell Washington's 300 pounds. I'm exaggerating, of course, on some of this. Let me exaggerate on some of this. Aaron Rodgers He was not sharp. But that doesn't mean he's not your guy. I saw some folks out there that are like, when does Will Howard get his chance? What in the hell are you talking about Will Howard for, who's not even completely off of IR in the same 21-day window now that Burrow's just starting? The head didn't play in the preseason, and you're leapfrogging Mason Rudolph. You're already writing him off, which I can understand people saying that. Guy's been in the league for a while, and he didn't, whatever. But Aaron Rodgers, one bad game, and now all of a sudden everybody's sour on him. Now all of a sudden the entire season's done, even though it's week 10, and there's 8 more weeks of football to go. And the Steelers have half of those games at home, and most of those games within the division. Things got to be cleaned up and get consistent. You could point at coaching with that. But I was going to say, I don't know what I got here. I don't know. This is just mail. But Mike Tomlin's walking around with something folded up like this now. I mentioned that. I think that's part of the fix with the defense. Very quietly, he's taking more charge. I thought the defense put a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert. I thought that the defense held for field goals and forced punts as necessary, where they weren't really doing that consistently throughout the year at this point, and giving up 30 plus points at the very end. Yeah, Lad McConkey gets this ball that's placed by Herbert. Everybody's like, what a beautiful ball, what a dangerous pass, that was nearly hit by Eccles with one hand, nearly knocked out with his other hand, and McConkey bobbled it once if not twice, and then Eccles doesn't have his balance, and that's the only guy available to make the tackle when he scampers off the 50. It's luck, and luck sometimes isn't in your favor, and sometimes it's really against you. It's like some of the things I can't even get into officiating, because it had nothing to do with this game. I was shocked to see some holding calls. Finally, some holding calls made in this game. But I saw a pick. I think it was Keenan Allen that caught this one pass. I don't know who threw it. I don't know if it was Rondé Gadsden, the tight end. But he just ran right into somebody. Everybody's like, Eccles had such a rough night. And then I'm trying to think what the other one was. Maybe it was actually called, but I remember they brought in Terry McCauley, who was the NBC former referee and analyst, and he's talking about whether or not to have his feet set. And Chris Collinsworth is talking about near and dear a sport to my heart growing up, being the tall galoot that I am, basketball, and a charge. And I never thought I'd be thinking about a basketball, a block and charge situation, and feet being set in football. And it's like, I know it could be split second because you're dealing with scientifically designed athletes at this point. They're already the 1% of your athletes playing the sport, but then some of them are just genetically mutated through years of experience and sports science and everything else. And it's like, did he hit him or not? Does it smell like it's cheating or not? And those things just drive me crazy, and they lead to my ire even more. But you can't overcome those. For the most part, the defense did. They gave up 314 yards. There were 69 plays run by the Chargers. That's not actually a whole lot in the context of a football game. 65-ish, you give or take 4 or 5 plays in either direction. That's about the average, right? But 37 minutes and 35 seconds of time of possession versus the Steelers having 22-25. And you tell me, was the defense the problem? And I'll tell you, the secondary getting banged up and having James Pierre and Joey Porter coming off the field and stuff like Darius Slay, that's a mess. That's a mess for the Steelers, but it wasn't as big of a mess as it could have been. The communication issues weren't necessarily there. They were able to, like I said, they got to Herbert multiple times, several sacks this game, 5 total. You know, I don't know what else that they could do. Possession-wise, they forced the Chargers to punt 4 out of the first 5 times that they had the football. They had several 3-and-outs and several shorter plays. The first one, 3 plays, 1 yard. They're off the field. Bam! I love it because I hate getting the ball first to start the game. I told you I'm a disciple of a completely different coaching philosophy. I am deferring all the time. But they didn't win the toss, so that did not matter. And then you have 7 plays, 18 yards, 3 plays, 6 yards, then 13 plays, 51 yards, down to Pittsburgh's 14-yard line. They settle for a field goal. And this is after The Steelers missed their field goal, and the Chargers get pretty prime real estate starting at their 35. They got the ball, of course, off the whole safety. That was the Steelers' third possession. The Steelers start with a punt, a field goal, then a safety, then a missed field goal, punt, an interception, you end the half, punt twice. The Steelers' possessions were just awful. I mean, going back to the Chargers, before half, 4 plays, 20 yards, 7 for 38. That was the touchdown following one of Aaron Rodgers' interceptions. That was bad. That was bad. That sets up the defense in a bad spot. And I think the defense was only off the field. That was a 51-second possession for the Steelers offense on that interception. It was 2 plays, 4 yards. Their first half, Aaron Rodgers' first half, 3 plays, 11 yards, 4 plays, 5 yards, 3 plays, -6. That's the safety. That's the end of the first quarter. 9 plays, 61 yards, and a missed field goal. 3 plays, 2 yards. 2 plays, 4 yards. 3 plays, 8 yards. Halftime. 4 plays, 19 yards. 3 plays, 2 yards. And then at the end, you got 8 plays, 45 yards, turnover on downs with the aforementioned, let's just throw it on the guy that's double covered and not put up a ball that the tall guy can get to. Of course, there's another pass that skips off of Calvin Austin's hands. And at that point, you're just like, well, this has been long over. I could have went to bed in the third quarter because nothing has changed. DK Metcalf has been irrelevant and marked irrelevant. And maybe teams are going to see this on film. I don't know that the Bengals, maybe the Bears might have some guys to be able, some personnel to similarly limit him. I don't expect Aaron Rodgers to overthrow everyone. Overthrow Metcalf, wide open. Overthrow Jonnu Smith, wide open. Underthrow, I don't know. Some of the plays looks like he rolled out to his left. I don't know if it was an RPO. I don't know if the wrong play was called. I don't know where Aaron's head was at. I don't know if something happened to him personally. I don't know if something happened to him physically. I don't know what to say. And I know he's not going to want to come off the field. So then people are like, oh, replace him with Will Howard, the guy who's not even dressed. Ridiculous, right? Steelers end with another drive. That Calvin Austin interception deal was only 2 plays, 5 seconds. And the Steelers defense, somewhere in the middle of this, they still hold the Chargers to punting after an interception. Then there's a muff punt to which 4 plays, -3 yards. Chargers hold for a field goal. The defense was not the issue. If the defense plays like this, and there's building blocks for them to work on a foundation, defense is not going to be the problem going forward, but they do need complementary football. They cannot be left out to dry like this, like they were. You had plenty of pass deflections defensively. The Steelers, how many did they get their hands on? 5 passes defensed in this game. I understand there were some key individual performances by the Chargers. 4 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown for Ladd McConkey. He's a guy that, me and Brian, we were talking to each other. I'm like, we admit to each other. I remember when he got drafted last year, we're like, 1st-round pick? What? Really? Ladd McConkey? No, he's living up to it. Give him his flowers where due. The guy that hadn't been living up to it, Quentin Johnston, still, he was targeted 10 times, only caught half of those for 42 yards. The rest of it's a mixed bag. Keenan Allen breaks whatever record. They were definitely looking to do that for him. Gadsden gets hurt. They were targeting him frequently. Had 6 targets, caught 3 passes for 13 yards. Herbert finishes the day just above 60% completed, 20 of 33, 220 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, as a 90.5 rating. Aaron Rodgers finishes with a 50.6 rating, well below 60% completed, 51.6, 16 of 31 for 161, a touchdown and 2 picks. He was sacked 3 times. Herbert was sacked 5 times. Kamali, I can't remember how to pronounce his name. Vidal. I didn't want to say he's a no-name running back, but he's, a smaller school guy, a guy that didn't have initially throughout his career notoriety. And he's been thrown into action because Marion Hampton being hurt, who they spent a high draft pick on out of North Carolina, liked him in the draft process, thought he might be a Steeler. Very Najee Harris-like, who just happens to be on this squad too and is out for the season. They ran for 115. Herbert had 19 of those, his long 15 yards. Some of that not actual scampers or any scrambles or anything like that. Just the one that, the defense was completely wide. You're going to have great plays by great players. So let's talk about Rodgers. Overthrowing players. Very inconsistent. Even the pass that skips off the hands of Calvin Austin, you're like, oh, they need a wide receiver too, Calvin Austin. I don't care. Throw that to Roman Wilson. Probably happens the same way. Throw it to DK Metcalf. Well, he tried to several times. He wasn't connecting with them either. Throw it that hard toward Pat Freiermuth. That ball was whizzing. I just don't know that Aaron just didn't have the feel Sunday night for how short, how far, how hard, how soft these passes should have been thrown. Do I expect that to be consistent? If this were a guy like a Will Howard, you want to see a Will Howard? You want to see any rookie play that's been drafted like late in the NFL draft? It's going to be some scary stuff. Even the guys that have been, Cam Ward's not exactly having a field day in Tennessee, and maybe he never will. We know where Aaron's floor and ceiling are, and we know based on his track record as a pro, he'll probably be able to bounce back from this. They'll be able to identify what needs to be corrected. I think importantly for the Steelers is they didn't they didn't leave this game with any major injuries, right? I think that is important to put on there. I'm hoping Isaac Seumalo can return. I know they tried Andreas Pete in at left guard for a short second while Spencer Anderson was playing that additional role, and Pete ends up playing, let me see, not too much, just 8 snaps. It wasn't good. He had the false start just to start. 50% of the stadium Steelers fans didn't get to use that to their advantage whatsoever. And Anderson, he's in there for almost the entire game, even though Pete plays 8 snaps. Anderson was only not out there at the same time, maybe for 3 of those. He plays 49 of the 52 Steelers offensive plays. Calvin Anderson and DK Metcalf, 92% of the game, 73% of the game. Steelers tried to get a wide receiver too. People say, oh, well, Omar Khan, they didn't make any big trade, blah, blah, blah. They went after Rashid Shaheed down in New Orleans. Apparently, there were at least 2, if not 3, rumor leaks. Take those for what you will. They are rumors, they are speculation, but supposedly Shaheed and the Saints, they were offered the same exact type of compensation as they had gotten. Ditto for Jacoby Myers out with the Raiders, who decided to go to Jacksonville, which has like a loaded wide receiver room, but maybe he didn't see this as an opportunity where he'd get the ball thrown a lot his way, which fair, okay. So, but they tried to make the play, and supposedly the same compensation for the Raiders, not the same as they were going to give the Saints for Shaheed, but what the competing offer is what I should clarify. So to say they didn't do anything, they still went out and they grabbed Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Wide receiver is a hard position, probably about as hard as quarterback. It's like the next thing. This is why it's like such a big bust rate at these positions. First, it's quarterback. Second, it's wide receiver. And it's because quarterback and wide receiver obviously have to be on the same page. And I think with wide receiver, just like running back, there's a certain age where there's a drop-off. There's certain positions. The more you got to run, I think, the shorter your lifespan is, and the more you get hit, obviously. When it comes to your career in the National Football League, how long you're going to last. So you don't get these other receivers. You got to make do with what you have. You have 2 short, small, speedy wide receivers, but you're not playing a lot of these bigger wide receiver sets, and I'm not sure how the offensive line holds up when they don't have that extra help and protection. There might be some things that are some glaring, smack the flex seal rate on it and try and fix the problems. That's Spencer Anderson playing as that 6th tight end. That's Chris Collinsworth getting his jolly saying that Darnell Washington weighs 300 pounds, which he doesn't. I'd be insulted at that. If I lost 20 pounds and I was 280, and I think he's maybe a little trimmer than that, I'd be insulted by that. They're not going to, I don't think they're moving him to tackle. Oh, and Aaron Rodgers would, so I'm saying this. Well, you should use the guy that nobody can tackle. He's 6'7", 6'8", 280 pounds. Throw him the freaking ball. That's the way I feel. And Rodgers is missing him too. And it's 2 games in a row that Rodgers has been a little off, but it was masked by all of those turnovers that the Steelers defense was able to create against the Colts. Unable to generate that, especially when you get in the hole early. You got to know how game script is going to play against this. And I'll give Collinsworth some credit on this. He says it on the broadcast for those of you that were watching. He says the team that ends up getting ahead is then going to be able to unleash their pass rush. They're going to be able to be more aggressive. The other Chargers they're up 2 scores. They can play a little more conservatively. You don't have to take big risks. You don't have to let your quarterback hold on to the ball for too long. And Rodgers was holding it. He was seeing ghosts. He was moving into spots that he shouldn't have been. Maybe this is a tendency that people picked up on. I don't know. Early in the season, he didn't move around a lot. Then all of a sudden, we're like, hey, he's moving around a lot. He looks like the old Aaron Rodgers. Found the fountain of youth and done. Now he's an old man that can't do anything. This game, bad game for Rodgers. Absolutely. Is it the end of the road? We shall see. But right now, I'm not ready to say that. He goes out and does this next 2 games. They lose against the Bengals and the Bears. And Aaron Rodgers throws like 5 interceptions. And he gets sacked a dozen times. Houston, we have a problem. Pittsburgh, we have a problem. But until then, I'm not ready to just pull out the white flag and surrender the season and start trying to play the lottery that all these other teams are playing for, like the Jets and the Browns or whatever. The Steelers got their own stockpile of draft picks to see what they're going to do with. We were just 2 weeks ago or so thinking Aaron Rodgers could have his arm twisted into returning for another year. But back when we were starting to say that, I followed that up by saying, let's see if this guy can hold up for 17 games first. So before you want to get rid of Aaron Rodgers, before you want to fire Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan and gut this thing, this is a team with a pretty solid foundation that is just maybe a piece or 2 away. Maybe it's Deshaun Elliott coming back from IR. Maybe they found something with Ramsey and Duggar and they just need a little more time to gel. I'm telling you, they need these guys healthy on the outside with Slay, with Porter. I don't know who else they could pick up to play corner. I mean, Pierre was playing. He had that body slam of hit. I actually have it here. A little bit of WWE action there for all of yins. It was entertaining. There weren't that many bright spots overall. I mean, the defense at times you were like, yeah, they're into it. You get a sack by Highsmith, Nick Herbig. Like there were some things. They dropped some passes. I heard some people talking about that too. And it's just like, that's why the guys play corner and safety and stuff. They would be wide receivers if they could catch. And they also don't have the added benefit of knowing where the ball is going like the wide receiver. So a lot of times it does catch you by surprise. And it's like, wham, this ball hits you at, I don't know, 70 miles per hour or whatever Aaron Rodgers is throwing at sometimes, or Herbert or any of these world-class athletes, as I'm saying. And you're just caught off guard, man. You got to get lucky, and the lucky aspect wasn't there. I know a lot of people want to be pissed off. They want to fire everybody in the world. Let's just compose ourselves. Let's regroup. I thought the defense, that's 2 stronger games. This was a game that if the Steelers don't turn the ball over, the 2 interceptions and the safety, that I think they do better. And Troy Fautano, he had a little bit of a rougher day in the office. He was just getting praised. He hadn't given up a sack or taken a penalty all season. And then like in the first quarter, he had both. Like right, the safety, that was right at him. I think Aaron Rodgers, give him a chance to rebound. I was actually thinking, I was like, should you kind of pull him? But he, you know, these guys are competitive. He didn't want to sit. And he still got to work with Roman Wilson, a work in progress. I think that was something that he went to him more than once, right? In the garbage time or whatever. And I think this is let's get this guy up to speed. We got to make somebody else a star. And that was something that was totally absent on the Steelers side of the ball, minus one guy. And the one guy that I felt makes things happen as much as he touches the football. And as much as sometimes he doesn't, you know, he gets a yard or 2 here or there. Jaylen Warren, and my goodness, the hurdle that he had. Feed this guy. Get this guy the football. I think you're taking a little bit of deeper shots. I mean, the fact that he had 14 carries is almost criminal. And he's non-existent in the passing game for the most part. He did get two catches. Maybe one's like a pitch that counts as a pass, technically, like the Keenan Allen record-breaking catch that he had. And 2 for 21. Get him a little more involved. I think when the Steelers offense was doing really great is when Lev Bell was the wide receiver 2. and nobody was really like, oh, who else is there besides Antonio Brown? I know at one point you had Martavis Bryant, when you did have him suspended for 4 games, suspended for 6 games, injured. The guy was on and off the field all the time. It's not like Sammy Coates was a reliable option in that high octane Killer Bees offense. And you got Pat Freiermuth, you've got Jonnu Smith, you've got Darnell Washington, you've got some guys like that. I think you got to lean a little bit more, maybe get some of the smaller guys involved in this past game, but definitely Jaylen Warren. When he touches the ball, he makes some things happen. And even though he loses some yards here or there, he still ended up with a 5 yards per carry average last night, 14 for 70. I don't believe he's had a 100-yard game at all this season. I know they tried to get Caleb Johnson going because you invested some draft capital in him. I'm not against that. He had a 5-yard long, but then his other 2 runs were for not a zilch, squat, zip, 0, losing yards. Maybe you're just going to have to wait another year. Maybe he just never becomes anybody. Maybe he's like Benny Snell was. That happens. You got to get lucky with some of the draft picks. People that don't want to give Omar Khan the credit. Nick Herbig, Darnell Washington. These are the other guys that are beginning to be like your 3rd and 4th round picks that pan out. And we may even see that with the Jack Sawyer in the future. We don't know. Just patience, because it's like everybody's throwing everything at the wall and trying to see what sticks. I don't know that you need to do that. I don't think it's a panic mode just yet. But if the Steelers fall below 500 over the next 2 games, and you watch the Bengals get Joe Burrow back, and you watch the Baltimore Ravens, and if they start to climb back in this picture and pass the Steelers in the standings, it's going to be a tough sledding. It's going to be an uphill battle. There's a lot of teams in this AFC that are in these wild card pictures. Like I said, Buffalo, they're now looking. They're behind. Are they behind a game and a half? I believe a full game and a half now. They're 6-3 to the Patriots. Yeah, because of a bye. So Bills have played 9 games. Patriots have played 10. And the Patriots are 2-0 in their division. Buffalo's 2-2. And, this is some of the things where people panic because, you know why? Because you're looking down the road already. There's some teams like the Jets, the Browns. There's teams like that are already looking to next year. They traded away some of their players. They're getting capital. The Giants fire Brian Daboll because, what happens when you lose your quarterback. And Jackson Dart, playing pretty decent, but he's out, concussion protocol. And then Russell Wilson was just holding on to the ball forever, and they stunk, and they couldn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, let's get rid of the head coach. And then what you got to do? You got to bring in another head coach. You got to hope that Jackson Dart is his guy, especially if you get rid of the general manager. That is a mess and a cycle of problems at the Steelers. They just simply, it's not that they avoid it. They're smarter than that. And I believe with them getting Aaron Rodgers, the idea was they have a good enough defense. They could spend a little bit more money there, and this team would be good enough to compete with anybody. And I think that they still could be good enough to compete with anyone. Win healthy, but they've got to get both sides of the ball to show up at the same time on the same day. And so far, we haven't seen that. Derek Harmon looks like a great draft pick. He was playing a lot. What are my final snap counts for Derek Harmon? Let's see if I can find it. I felt like he was out there a lot. 55% of the game. It's pretty good. Peyton Wilson is really starting to come around. The speed linebackers versus that, you had Landon Roberts the year before or whatever. Now it's Malik Harrison. He's the thumping guy. He's maybe more of a believer, but I really hate the kind of mindset that you have to have. They really need a guy that could play, that could really do it all. And it's just the way that some of this is set up with sub packages. And the Steelers, they're far from being the only team immune to this. Guys get tired. Guys get hurt. Wyatt Black playing a little bit more, I think. You got some different players, you got a little bit of a different mix. I like to see what the defense is doing. What if you gave the defense let's flip this on its head and gave the Steelers offense 35 minutes of possession? And the Steelers defense only had to contend with the other team being 25 minutes because they don't get the ball back. It has nothing to do whether the defense can get on or off the field. It is important. I thought the Steelers did pretty good with that defensively last night. But, excuse me, imagine you give this defense a 2-score lead and you give them time of possession. They didn't get the time of possession against the Colts, but you gave them a lead and you saw what they were capable of doing. Let's see if they could do that. If it's Joe Flacco coming to Pittsburgh this time, I think they can do this. And I think they'll be a little bit better organized defensively. They won't be on this short week. but they do get a Bengals team that's going to be a little fresh coming off a bye. We'll see what that looks like later this week. Folks, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hopefully you liked it. I toned my sass down a little bit. I'm very close to just swearing like, I'm the son of a truck driver. I say that all the time. My dad wore many hats. Truck driver is just one of them. Sailor was not one, but swore like one too. I inherited that. I try not to do that. I try to keep it clean. But I'm losing my cool a little bit. I'm starting to get a little irritated. I get irritated with the team just as much as you do. I get irritated with other fans, whether they're Steelers fans or somebody else. I get irritated with media. I get irritated with all of it. And I just had to get a little bit off my chest. So let me know how you feel, whether you think you have any hope that the Steelers turn this around. And I mean now, this season. I ain't looking to 2026 just yet. This ain't over. By any means is this over. They got a bunch of division games. But some folks are already thinking, well, if they make the playoffs, what are they going to do? Can they compete and even win a playoff game? Got to see some improvement. And sometimes you see these teams that are really good at the beginning of the season. And the Steelers have not been really good at the beginning of the season. By any means have they been. So there could be a ceiling there. Maybe they could reach that. Maybe the bar's set a little low too. Maybe it's never realized. Maybe they never realized those gains. But maybe, just maybe, we'll see. Maybe it's the inverse of last season where they took that nosedive at the end, or are we on the same trajectory? Would love to hear from those of you that are out there. Like seeing the comments. Insult me. I don't care. Insult Brian instead. He'll be back. I promise he'll be back and speak his mind coming up for our pregame show when we pregame next week's game at Acrisure. Since he bungles. I was introducing for my 2%ers out there. I always say 2%ers, but if you're kind of new to this and you're now a new 2%er, you're hearing this. There was a guy I listened to a few years ago. This is where this came from, and it was about podcasting and recording. And if you have people that listen this long into the program, only about 2% listen through to the very end. And those are my 2%ers. So if you're out there, acknowledge yourself. Leave it in the comments. I'll give you a thumbs up. I'll give you the little heart thing, whatever else that's out there. But my daughter, she's too young. She just turned 12 years old. She doesn't know the inventor of the innovator of the terrible towel, a one Myron Cope. And I was thinking about this because my mom, who was very much, even though Youngstown, Ohio, born and raised, steel town, Rust Belt town, just like Pittsburgh. And you've got a lot of the same ethnicities throughout and going into Western Pennsylvania and on down, the whole way. And my mom drops a yoy. Yoy. And I just couldn't help but think of Myron Cope. So I was playing some Myron Cope isms for my daughter. And one of them, particularly since she has to deal with some friends that are Cincinnati Bengals fans, the Bengals, and she just thought that was fantastic. And I can just never unhear it. They will forever be the Bengals to me. Yoy, double yoy. I probably can't even do it justice, but Myron Cope, one of the great ones. 2%ers. Hope you loved that. I don't know. I'm not going to do any more impressions. Maybe I'll do more impressions. I don't know. I get a little nervous about it, but yoy, double yoy. Try and do those type of things. Maybe it's close. Maybe it's not. You can let me know. Till then, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a rating or review wherever you're watching or listening from. We appreciate all of you. My name is Joe Kuzma for the Steel City Underground podcast. Until next time, encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.